comic book issues. I'm your host, the Last Angry Geek. And welcome to the first ever pull list. A name so great, every single comic book show on the internet uses it. What is the pull list? Well, don't let me forget my hat is here. The pull list is just going to be me talking about the comic books I'm reading and whether you should read them or not. Just a quicker, simpler wrap-up. And basically, I'm just going to tell you whether you should be buying these comics, reading them in collection form, or you should just skip them, and then explain why I'm not skipping them. This first episode is only going to be about 6 comics. Every week I'm going to take 2 comics, usually one DC, one Marvel, and talk about them. Since this is the first one, we're only going to have 6, but the next month we'll have the last week of January and the first 3 weeks of February, and it ends so forth. But this first one is only 6. So let's get started with the first comic on this list, X-Men Red #1. After a really awful event comic book called The Phoenix, The Return of Jean Grey is back alive and she's got a new team of X-Men to lead. It starts with her rescuing some very young children whose mutant powers is manifesting before puberty. Jean now has a new idea for the mutant race, and she's working with the United Nations and thinkers and trying to find a way to counter all this hatred and fear and bigotry that's frankly very relevant in the world right now. The X-Men have always been a good analogy for whatever minority you want to represent at the time. What I didn't get was she works first with the Submariner and then with Wakanda. Didn't the Submariner get invested with the Phoenix during AVX and then destroy Wakanda? Why in the world would these two ever work together on anything? Plus, why would the Black Panther work with the woman synonymous with the Phoenix when it was the Phoenix Force that let Namor destroy his country? But continuity has not been a big deal in Marvel the last few years, so I guess I shouldn't worry about it. We join in the middle of the story. It's one of those things where she's already working on her plans, and then we get flashbacks to see what she's building up towards. We don't know what the plan is yet, but what I like about this is it's no longer the Phoenix. Jean's been dead since the end of Grant Morrison's new X-Men run, so now she's back and she's not all-powerful and all-knowing. When she tends to be the Phoenix, Jean Grey can be a very annoying character. In fact, even the teenage Jean Grey from the time-lost X-Men was very annoying because she began reading everyone's mind without permission and was trying to alter her own future so she didn't become the Phoenix and die. But, you know, she got to be a very obnoxious character. Here, they make Jean compassionate, and that's what's been missing from the character for a while. Plus, she's building towards anything. The X-Men have been in reaction mode for over a decade now. It's like, oh, we're wiped out. Oh, we need to find this mutant messiah. Oh, we need to bring the mutants back. Oh, we're split in 2. Oh, we're going to rebuild the school. Oh, we're going to overthrow, the government and make a mutant utopia. And it just, they were kind of running from one event to the next. So to have a team of X-Men with a clear plan, a clear purpose, and they're compassionate, they're helping people, they're helping other mutants. Compassion is what's most important in Jean Grey, so Tom Taylor gets that right. And the art by Mohammed Asrar is very good. It's kind of simplistic, but it never feels like he's cheating you or blowing past a page to get to the next one. It's consistently good, if a little bit simplistic, but in a good way, like a Mike Mignola kind of way. And the colorist, I can't pronounce his name, but it'll appear here, is doing a kind of like a watercolor approach to the color. So it has a different kind of look to it. But I think it works for the book. The story's been fun. There are no supervillains until the very last page, so that is coming. But I like where this is going, and my suggestion, buy it. The next comic is Harley and Ivy Meet Betty and Veronica, issue 5. Now, we're almost at the end of this series, but it's been a lot of fun. The basic story is that Betty and Veronica get their minds switched with Harley and Ivy thanks to some shenanigans by Zatanna and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. They've come to town to Riverdale to stop Veronica's dad from paving over some rare swamplands to build a mall or an entertainment center. I don't know what he's doing. Then it becomes about these villains and teenage bodies trying to stop this renovation while these teens and villains' bodies trying to get back to Riverdale and get their minds back. The story's fun. The art is consistently good. Now, there are also a lot of little connections that I enjoyed, like the fact that Catwoman is there. She's the one who takes the teens in villains' bodies back to Gotham because she's there at the breaking ground ceremony for this swamp renovation because Josie and the Pussycats are playing and she's a big Josie and the Pussycats fan. That's hilarious. The Lodge family butler, I forget the character's name, actually knows Alfred Pennyworth because they served in the military together and then they both came to America and became butlers. Of course they know each other. This is issue 5. Issue 6 is coming out. And if you're not a big Archie fan, this might not be for you. So I would suggest you get this one in collection form or wait for Comixology to put it on sale because they do a lot of sales throughout the year. So you can probably pick this up at some point for a few bucks in its collection form, or even just try out the first issue or two at 99 cents. So you might want to wait for a digital collection sale on this. Next is Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. Now, I initially liked the first miniseries by Dan Slott and Adam Kubert, but the ongoing has been hemorrhaging creators and talent. The first story arc was by Jerry Dugan and drawn by Ryan Stegman. Then Dugan left and Stegman took over writing, but not the art. So now he's gone, and it's just a lot of C-list creators. It really feels like Marvel is doing everything it can to make sure this book doesn't succeed. Why would Marvel not want a book about a married Spider-Man to succeed? I know, it doesn't make sense to me either. That said, while it's not a book with a lot of good talent on it, that doesn't mean it's a bad book. But they've recently jumped from Annie being 5 years old to she's 13 now. It's 8 years later. And I felt like that killed some of the charm of the book. I like seeing Spider Dad and Spider Mom. Now, the girl's grown up and it doesn't feel like she needs her parents as much. This is the time when teen heroes break free on their own. But the family drama is still fun. Peter has to get a job teaching at her school. Of course, Annie's embarrassed by having Peter there. Mary Jane's trying to keep the peace between the two because they're constantly bickering. So that's enjoyable enough. But I'm not crazy with the talent. I'm not crazy with the current direction of the story. I'm probably going to keep with this book till the end just because I'm invested in having a married Spider-Man comic out there on the market. But for most of you, my suggestion, skip it. Or go back and read the earlier arcs, the initial Battle World Secret Wars arc, or the first couple of stories of this ongoing. Okay, next is Sideways #1. Now, I don't know what's going on in Dark Knight Metal, Batman Metal, whatever it's called, I don't know. There's a quick flashback that kind of shows what happened. This kid is there with his mom, he falls into a hole, they kind of skip ahead, everyone at school is wary of him, his parents are very concerned about him, so he had some sort of breakdown, or maybe he was in a coma, or maybe he went nuts, I don't know. But now he's a part to teleport through space by ripping holes in the dimension and going through them. He also has super strength, and his anime-loving best friend made him a super suit. Now, it seems like all these new age of heroes are ripping off Marvel properties, like the Punisher or the Fantastic Four. Well, we've got a wisecracking teenager in a full-body suit with big eyes and no mouth. Who could he possibly be ripping off? Let me think. Thwip. That's how I think. Yeah, no idea. But it could be anybody, I guess. This is mostly exposition and backstory. There's a thing, monster, villain, entity that shows up at the end. There's no real conflict or anything. All right, the art here by Kenneth Rockford is amazing, and he is a great artist. I followed him on Ultimates. He did some work for Top Cow with Man of Mirage and Hunter Killer. He is a great artist. He's going to be one of the most in-demand artists of his time if he keeps going. That said, the story here is by Dan DiDio, and for all my issues with Dan DiDio and the DCNU, he is capable of writing good comic books. That said, this is not one of them. The one thing I did like that he did is the hero streams his crime fighting with a camera. That's something we're going to see more of as social media becomes more popular and relevant in our modern day lives. For all the hype these comics are receiving, this first issue is just setup and backstory. My suggestion, buy it if you're a fan of Kenneth Rockford's art like I am, otherwise I'd skip it. Next is issue 17 of Star Wars Dr. Aphra. Now, I was going to stop reading this book when Kev Walker left because I love his art. But Kieran Gillen, this is the book that he kept doing after he left Vader. He took the Dr. Aphra character and spun her off in her own title with her supporting cast. Now, he had such a good cliffhanger on the first issue after Kev Walker left that I decided to keep with it. That said, the story has now become kind of like an Ocean's 11 thing, and it's starting to wear a little thin in this issue. I was ready for some more plot advancement than just them running around doing things with unclear goals. We do get some plot advancement by the end, so let's see where this goes from here. The current artist, Emilio Lazo, is no Kev Walker. His aliens tend to look kind of cartoony for my taste. He has a very animated style of drawing. I don't mean, kinetic. I mean, he draws like he's doing animation. And that doesn't always work for some of the aliens. I will say, as the social justice warrior I am, and proud of it, that I'm glad there is a lesbian character in the Star Wars universe, something I thought we were going to get in The Last Jedi, but we didn't. Dr. Aphra is gay, and she's very interested in the cybernetic Imperial agent hunting her down. I also like that the Imperial agent used to know a character that was in the Darth Vader book, so there's some plot continuity between the two titles, besides the one character jumping into her own book. My suggestion, it's probably not the right time for you to jump in. We're in the middle of a story arc. Go back, at least reread Dr. Aphra #1 and go forward from there. Otherwise, you might even want to go back and reread Kieran Gillen's Darth Vader book and then start Dr. Aphra. But this is a good title. I just don't think it's the right time for new readers to jump in. Last up is The Brave and the Bold #1. Now, this is written and drawn by Liam Sharp, who drew the modern-day segments of Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman Rebirth story. So here he's getting to tell his own story, and it's basically Wonder Woman getting called in to mediate disputes in the Celtic mythology universe. It's got fairies, trolls, giants, and they're all living in this mystical land that they moved to when the modern times began. I can't pronounce it, but I'll put it here. Basically, my one issue with this is a Batman team-up, but Batman's barely in it. This is mostly about Wonder Woman and setting up the story. Batman just kind of knows something is going wrong in the Irish segments of Gotham City, and when he goes to investigate it, he kind of gets the whammy put on him. Also, this is not for kids. The first couple of pages with Wonder Woman is her in bed with Steve Trevor and some pillow talk. There's no nudity or sex, but it is a PG moment. There's also an old man character who still believes in the fairies, and I'm very interested to see what they do with him. This first issue is all set up, but the art is great. I'm very interested to see where this story's going. It's a 6-issue miniseries. I definitely suggest you buy this one. And that's it for now. Thanks for joining me. This is going to be a fun monthly thing we can do, and I hope you take my suggestions to heart. I also would love to hear from you. What books should I be checking out? Until then, my friends, this is Comic Book Issues, and I'm your host, the Last Angry Geek.